Hi, this is Jeff Hawkins. I'm the technology instructor for the Pacific Crest Innovation Academy in the Millay School District of Southern Washington. I'm going to make a video today. I'll try to keep it as brief as possible. I'm going to focus on creating a data entry and edit form for data that exists in a many-to-many relationship. In order to get to that point, there's a lot of prerequisite understanding of tables and queries and such. I'm not going to go into that, so just fair warning. We'll try to move quickly, and you'll kind of have to know how some of the background stuff works. All right, let's get into Microsoft Access. Here is a database I've mocked up to demonstrate this. We have a table of books, 2 books in it right now, and various book data. We have a table of genres for those books. And I'm not sure these are the best genres, but it's just demonstrating the technology. And of course, better genres, more books could be added. So a many-to-many relationship requires a linkage table. And here's the linkage table. We can see that book 1 is linked, in this case, to genre 3 twice, actually. Let's just fix that. So let's take a look at these relationships, actually. Database tools, relationships. You can see the book, a single book, can have n number of genres. They use the infinity symbol. It's not actually infinite. One genre can have many books also, n number of books. So that's how our tables are set up. Let's get into making a form to actually edit this data. So I'm going to start by making a main form from the book table. I'm going to use the form wizard and just grab everything. All the fields, columnar output is fine, and we'll call this book entry. Okay, so this is great, but it doesn't show the genres that we care about. What we need to do is add a subform to see and edit the genres. Now, seeing is one thing, editing is another. We actually need to edit these things. So let's start by creating a query that supports editing this data. So we'll go back to create. We'll go to query design, and here's where you get your first hurdle. Ordinarily, you would be concerned with the book genre, and the genre table. But our main form already is attached to the book table. So our subform is really concerned with the book genre and the genre that are related to the book table by the book ID. And because we already have that data, we're going to link to this book genre table when we link the form in. So this query can only have 2 tables. It can only have 2 tables because if we add a third, Microsoft Access will not know how to deal with the data that we try to save back to it. You're limited to really 1 or 2 tables when you're editing data. So this is the trick of it, right? This is the whole puzzle that a lot of people stumble on. You can't have a form that allows you to edit data unless the data itself is editable. And when you have 3 tables, as you do in a typical many-to-many relationship, you cannot edit the data in that data set. Anyway, there's our query. We need the book ID, the genre ID, and the genre. And I'm going to close that and save it as query book entry genres, or genre, we'll call it, book entry genre. Okay, so now we have the query. Still don't have a subform. Let's make a subform for that. I recommend doing this outside of the main form. Just make your subform first. It tends to just go easier. So I'm going to go back to the form wizard. I'm going to pick the data set that we just made, the query book entry genre. And here's your second hurdle. Although all of these fields are important, we are only showing the genre field. This is a view. The form is a view into data, and this is the data we want to view. The rest we don't. These fields will still be available to work with, and I'll show you how that works shortly. Okay, so we've got the genre. We'll go with a data sheet view because it is much more compact, and we want to see all the records at once. We don't want to be toggling through genres as we toggle through book records. Okay, so this is subform book entry genre, finish, and we get our subform. And notice it does not have all of the genres. Science fiction is missing, and that's because we told it not to include genres that aren't actually used. This is from the perspective of the books. We don't have a science fiction book in here yet, and so the data is correctly not showing that. Okay, let's move on and add our subform here. Okay, so we want to go to the design view for this form. Want to give ourselves a little more room, actually a lot more room, because it's going to come out pretty big. We need to add a subform, so we go to the controls here and find the subform control, draw it on the screen, and because we've already made our form, we can say use the existing form, the one we just made, next. And here's where we attach this subform to the main form. We're really attaching the data of the subform to the data of the main form. This default is actually correct, but I'm going to say define my own, just so you can see how this works. All we're saying is that the book ID field from the main form is what connects up to the book ID field of the subform, and that's how all this data is kept in line. Okay. So, subform book entry genre, finish. We've attached our form. I'm going to go ahead and shrink this because it's about to become problematic. All right. That should help. We can delete that and pull this up. Okay. All right, so let's take a look at what we have. If we look at the view, we see that we're mostly in place. We've got our book data. Probably need to nudge this down so it's more readable. But anyway, the subform is on there and it's showing the correct records. If I switch to a new book, we see that the subform refreshes with the correct data. But it's going to be awfully hard to enter things. In fact, if you were to enter right now, if you notice the way that query was written, whatever I put in here is going to get dropped into the genre table, and a new genre ID is going to be created for it. That is not what we want. We want to use existing genres, and we just want to make a linkage between books and the genre table. So let's go back to design view. Let's look at this genre field. Right now it is a text box. We want it to be a combo box, I think. We want to give a list of genres to choose from. So we can just right-click on it and say change to combo box. Having done that, we'll start to see a whole bunch of new properties. If we look at the properties of this combo box, we get combo box properties. So one problem we have right off the bat is the control source. Now, we wanted to see the genre. That's why it's set to genre. That is the text version of it, like science fiction, etc. We don't really want that here, though. We want to see the text name of the genre, but we want to be controlling it based on the ID. We want to be writing an ID to the linkage table. So the control source, the thing that this field is tied to, has to be the ID, right? So genre ID is the control source. Now the row source is the list of options that show up in a combo box. And we want the list of options to be basically all of the genres, right? So we could select the genre table. Frankly, that would work, but It's not great for maintenance because if you modify the genre table, you would be more likely to break this than if we just made a quick query. So let's just make a quick query. We'll make it based on the genre table. We're going to get the genre ID and the genre. So the result of this query is currently identical to the state of the genre table, but by making it a query, it's a little bit more survivable for changes that might happen to the genre table. You know, you could still break it, but it's not as bad. All right. When we close this, because we made this query directly from the property sheet for that combo box control, it just says, hey, do you want to save this and update the property? Yes, of course. That's why we did it. And then you'll see the control source, the list of things that populates the combo box, is now a SQL statement that selects out the genre ID and the genre from the genre table. So now we have two columns. We have two pieces of data, but we've only got, you know, one thing in the combo box. We need to fix that. It's good that the bound column, that's the column that is tied to the control source, the bound column defaults to 1, and that is correct. This is the first column coming back from our row source, and it's the genre ID. That's what we want, so that's all good. Let's go to the Format tab here. And we'll see that the column count is set to 1. That's the norm and the default. In this case, though, we have two columns. We have the ID and the name. So we have two columns. And I'm going to show you something before I put column widths on these, and that is that we've now sort of broken it. If I click on View, you'll see we have numbers showing up in the genre thing instead of the genre themselves. That is because we have one spot to put data, and we said the control source is the ID, and that's the first column. So when it gets dumped into the display, you know, you get the ID instead of the name, even though it's like the spot reserved for the name. So if we look at the format of this genre ID combo box, we've said it has two columns. That's the combo box when you click on it. See how when I click on it, you get two columns. You get the ID and the name. When it's closed up, it's showing you the ID. So if we go back to Design View into the properties of the combo box, I think what's going on there is that our two columns of data is getting written to the one spot that exists to hold it. Even though we've said the column count is 2, that's affecting the combo box when you drop it down. We need to give these some widths to tell Access how to work with this. And let me just say, if we say that the first column is of 0 inches wide, and the second column is maybe 2 inches wide, what we do when we do that is it basically makes Access create two buckets to hold this data. The ID goes in the first one, which is invisible because it's of 0 width, and then the name of the genre goes in the second one, which is what you can still see. Just by changing the column widths, we have now corrected that problem, and you start to see the name showing up. So that's a little bit weird. Frankly, I kind of consider that a design flaw in Access, but that's how it works. Okay. That's it. Now, there are refinements you can and will want to make to this. For one, I'm not sure you'd want your users to be able to change this. So you probably want to lock this down. That's one thing. And the other thing you might want to do is you might want to limit the query so that it's not including things that already exist. I mean, why should I be able to pick romance twice, right? Well, I can currently. And I think the best way to do that is getting into a more deep query for what should show up in the genre list. So those are sort of notes to be left hanging, but I think we've done what we set out to do in this video, which is show you how to get at many-to-many relationship data, create a form to edit it, and this is sort of the foundations of a really good setup. The connections are there, and that's the basis of how it works. Have a great day.